Hi, and welcome to Dockside with Deb. In this weekly show, we'll talk to people who are doing some pretty cool things in sailing and experts in their field. I'm Deborah Diel, sailor, founder of MySail, and your host for today. Dockside with Deb is recorded live, so you can join in and ask your own questions. To find out more, head to mysail.team/docksideWithDeb. Let's get started. And I'd like to thank Steve McConaghy very much for joining us today for this episode of Dockside with Deb. Steve is a legend sailor and tactician, has done a ton of stuff in Australia, internationally, as of late, a lot in Asia. He also represented Australia in the Olympics, and I'll let him tell you more about that. Steve was pivotal in helping me get started in the 540 class. So I'm very grateful to Steve for that, because that's one of my favorite classes to sail in as well. So without anything further, I'll pass it over to Steve. And Steve is actually joining us from Tasmania today. He's down in the Kettering region, and he wanted to tell us a little bit about his move to Tasmania and that. So Steve, tell us about why you're joining us from Tasmania.
Yeah, hi Deb. Yeah, I was always from Pittwater, and I had the opportunity to buy my brother's place in Snug, Tasmania. And it was my dream home. It had 50 acres and it overlooks the Iron Pot. And I've been travelling here since he built the house in 92, 93. So I've been coming down here, once or twice a year to visit him. And I had family move down here, my mum, my other brother Andrew, my sister Fiona. They all kind of live within about 5-10 kilometres. So Ian said he was going to sell it, and I went, "No, don't sell that beautiful place. I want to buy it." So we sort of started negotiating and worked out a pretty good deal, and here I am. We bought it 2 years ago, but then I got that Noah's Chinese gig, so I've been sort of in and out of China and doing that for 2 years. And anyway, that finished just in time in November before all this COVID started. So I was pretty lucky there, and decided to move down here in January, and been loving it. It's great.
Yeah, nice. Well, yeah, it's good, I guess, that you kind of finished your program before the COVID started, because that's put a bit of a stop to a whole lot of things, hasn't it? Steve, let's start by talking a little bit about your early days of sailing. I'm interested to know how you got involved and when you started sailing.
Yeah, well, my old man, Doug McConaghy. A lot of people get my father confused with John McConaghy, who's the founder of McConaghy Boats. But my father's Doug. He's actually 92 this year. He bought our family yacht in 1972. And I was 4 years old, so you can work out how old I am from that. But he bought that when I was 4, and I was really keen to sail it up from Sydney Harbour when I was 4. And my mum said, "No way, you're not up to that yet." And this boat had done 6 Sydney to Hobart. So it was built in 65. I think it got a second in 66 in the Hobart race. So it's an old veteran wooden Swanson 36. Anyway, it all started then. And soon after, we obviously, the family got right into sailing. And I think I put a photo on Facebook the other day. I think it was my first ever sail, and that was in the Flying 11 with my brother Ian. I don't know how old I was, probably 5 or something. And then, sort of obviously showed that I was pretty keen. So Mum and Dad bought me an old Manly Junior. 605 was the sail number. And then, just mucked around on that for a while. And then we bought another Manly Junior, a bit better one. It was called Quick Step. 1983 was the sail number. And I did my first nationals 1979 at Wallara. And we finished, that was with my brother Andrew. We finished, I think 20th in that one. And then the next year, 1980, we went to Tasmania, Devonport. And I think we got 12th in that one. Then 81 went to Perth, got 8th in that one. And then 82, mother and father funded a new boat, and we got Phil Bate to build it. Nice plywood, beautiful boat. Like, I didn't want to get it wet. It just looked fantastic. It was so special. yeah, I campaigned that with my new crew, Giles Mackenzie. And yeah, we were fast. The boat was unreal. It was very well built. It was light, and we had a real good battle with Emmett Lazic, who's one of the best 49er coaches around at the moment. And the nationals were at Bayview, Pittwater, so my home waters, and Emmett's home yacht club, actually. I was sailing out of Royal Prince Alfred Yacht Club. And yeah, anyway, we ended up winning that one, so that was pretty exciting to win my first nationals. I think I was aged 13. And then the following year, I got straight into the Flying 11s. And so actually, that was the last Wood & Manly Junior to win the nationals. And then the following year, I got a Flying 11, brand new Flying 11 from Mariner Craft. And we were the last boats from Mariner Craft to win at nationals before Freddie Phillips in dinghy sports took over, and his boats won the next 10 or so nationals after that. So anyway, I teamed up with Scooter from Scooter Sales Yamba. So back in the day, we were good friends with Lance and Scooter, were twins. We sailed against each other in Manly Juniors, and then you got into the Flying 11s with Scooter. And we trained really hard, and we had our first nationals up at Brisbane, and out of RQ there, and it blew like 20, 25 every day. And we were an unknown, like we hadn't really done any regattas before. It was our first season in the Flying 11. No one knew us, and there was guys like Adrian Nash, who, he was basically a given to win the nationals. And we sort of got out there, and we're going really well. We were fast, and we started winning races, and we're winning by a pretty good margin, and a good 90 boat fleet. Anyway, we ended up winning the regatta with a race to spare. Basically, it was a huge celebration for us, and love Flying 11s. Everyone raves about the good times, and I agree, it's best sailing I've done in dinghies, and had a lot of fun. And then the next year, decided to stay in the Flying 11. I was only 14, 15, and decided to sail with my girlfriend at the time, Jennifer Feely. So she's 2 years younger, and again, we had a real ding-dong battle with Emmett Lazic in the nationals, and geez, it was close. It was neck and neck, and we managed to win again. So we won the Flying 11 nationals 2 years running. So pretty exciting again. And then we thought, what do we do after that? Do we go into 420s, or what's the next step? There was no 29ers or anything. I was too small for a laser. There was no laser radials back then. So anyway, we kind of spoke from Dad, said, what can we afford? What can we do? And the decision was made to get a 505, because they were huge. They were really going berserk in Middle Harbour Yacht Club, and Lake Macquarie had 3 of the last world champions there, and they were getting like 25 boats every Saturday sailing. So I teamed back up with my brother, and he was at the time, straight up to 6'3" at the age of 7. What was he? He was 18, 19. I was sort of 16, 17 into the 505, and pretty good weight combination. And we bought the boat off Ian Brown, who was one of the best sailmakers back then, One Design Sails. And he taught us all about the boat, how to set it up. He trained us, he coached us, he got us up to speed. It was the best guy to buy a boat off, because he stepped me straight into the class. He built some sails for us. And we went up to Lake Macquarie and sailed every Saturday, and met some amazing guys up there. As I said, we had lots of the world champion guys up there, like Gary Brunnages and McCurwoods and Dean Blatchford, Tommy Woods, and Ovo and Wally, and all these really good sailors. Just sort of showed me how to sail these things and have a good time. And
and I'm just going to throw in a question, actually. So, I mean, you obviously you started in dinghies and had done a ton of sailing at a high level in a whole bunch of different dinghies, and a lot of people who come through my sail haven't necessarily have that kind of small boat dinghy experience. They may have started later in life and with yachts. And I guess, what benefits do you think that experience brings, especially with when you do move up into the yachts and with what, you do with the tactic sides of things?
Yeah, I mean, I've always said to everybody, you've got to sail dinghies to be a good yachtsman. If you step straight into a yacht at the age of 20, you're way behind the eight ball. You've got to start young. You can become a good yachty, but you just haven't got the feel, the balance, and that, as everyone knows that sailing is such a complex sport, and no matter how many times you sail, you're just forever learning. And you look at the guys, the knowledge of someone like Mike Fletcher. I wish I had his brain. Like, he's like mid-80s or something now, and his knowledge is just amazing. So every day I go out sailing, I learn, and it all comes from dinghies. Like, these days you're sailing 50 footers like a dinghy. Like, the TP52s are all about kinetics and weight movement, and the good guys are winning because they're getting the weight right and the balance and everything. So it's very important for sure. And also, I mean, I was going to say, like, up at Toronto, all these guys, fantastic guys sailing 505s, they'd have 6 schooners of beer before they go out sailing. And, like, obviously, after I turned 18, I did the same thing, and we'd have a few beers before we go out racing in 25 knots. But it just taught me to handle all conditions under all sort of circumstances. And, like, it was just amazing to sort of have, to do that and sort of learn to sail under pressure and not quite a clear mind, but just a good example of that.
Yeah, so just lots of different circumstances.
Yeah.
And Steve, if we, I want to pop forward to maybe 1996, because, and the lead up, because you did something quite significant that year. I believe I've got the year right. And you have something in the camera frame that we can see that the audience might be interested to know a little bit more about. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we got the Olympic torch over my left shoulder. And having competed in the 96 Olympics, we got automatic sort of selection to do the torch relay. So I jumped at that, and I think I ran out at Camden, did the little jog for 500 metres, and we were able to keep the torch that we used. So it was pretty special. But I'll give you a bit of a lead up to the games. Like, we did heaps of that 505 stuff. We went all over the world. We bought one of the Kerwoods. The Kerwoods were building the boats at the time, and the Europeans and everybody wanted these boats. So we bought a new one, and they, these 3 world championships, they had champions had Kerwood boats. So anyway, we went over and competed in Helsinki for my first trip overseas, first world championships, and straight to a place like Helsinki is completely different to obviously Australia. All these little islands everywhere, the archipelago, was just unbelievable. So we went over there, and the mast broke in transit. So we get there, and luckily my friends from Lake Macquarie had a spare mast, Wally and Ovo. It's Peter Houston and Alan Ovenden. And so they lent me their mast, and we went out training, and we felt really good. And I thought, geez, this mast is suiting our boat and everything. Just the setup was great. So we went out sailing, and next thing we're doing really well, and we're actually leading the regatta, like, big fleet, big first world championships. And we end up fourth. We just missed top 3, but that was a great experience for us. And we had the confidence, after that to do really well. So we come back here, and we had the world's 1988 off Manly Circle out of Middle Harbour Yacht Club. And again, like the first race, we hit the left corner, a little bit of tide and maybe a left shift, but we led around the top mark, and the world's here, and we end up getting 3rd in those worlds. So really happy with that. And after that, we went into the 470s to campaign for the Olympics. And we had probably 10 really good teams trying real hard, and I wish I had Victor back then, because we were all pretty close, all these guys, and we had the worlds, and we finished like 42nd or something out of, I don't know, 80 boats. But yeah, basically nowhere compared to the 470 guys today. They're just kicking ass. So Victor's done such a good job. I think our best guy was 27th or something. But yeah, so we didn't even qualify for the Olympics. And I sold my boat to Tom King. So he bought my boat and went on to win gold.
Wow.
And excel, obviously. So then I went into the laser class and did a couple of seasons. And I remember off Palm Beach sailing against Glenn Burke, who was triple world champion. And I was actually leading the laser state titles off Palm Beach. And I think we were going into the last race, and he just took me out. He match raced me back to the back of the fleet. And anyway, I ended up 5th in that regatta. But I campaigned the laser pretty hard. And then I had a call from Matt Hayes and asked me to do a soling campaign for 96 Olympics. And I thought, do I really want to hang over the side of the laser, or do I want to do a soling campaign, which sounded like the funding might be okay. And Matt Hayes turned out to be really good at the fundraising program. So we got stuck into this Olympic campaign and went all over Europe. We did Spa Regatta and Hier's Regatta and a few of those, and yeah, had a really good time with those guys. And then I came back and I just wanted to keep my hand in the laser, and so I did another state titles and got second to Michael Blackburn. And I realised he was just awesome. Blackers, he was just in a league of his own, and I just didn't think I was going to be able to beat him, so I just elected to go on in the soling. So we campaigned pretty hard with Barry Watson, and went to the Olympic trials in Puntarella, Italy, and finished 12th. And we had 4 teams campaigning at the time: Barney Walker and Cameron Miles, and I can't think of the 4th one, but anyway, we beat them by 10 places or something in that first trial. So foot was in the door. We just had second trials in Canada the following year, and we actually got 3rd in those worlds. So we nailed the trials. So we're off to the Olympic Games, and there we were, representing Australia. Atlanta, sailed in Savannah.
Yep. And that must have been was that quite a pivotal moment, do you think, in your sailing career, or in the scheme of things?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Amazing experience, and having an Olympics under your belt on your resume is definitely really good to go pro. And I think that's what enabled me to kick off my pro career. And I just never forget the walking out into the stadium at the open ceremony was just fantastic. Just gives you goosebumps.
Wow. And since then you've been involved in a lot of high-end programs, as I said, kind of Australia and internationally. Was that Olympic campaign, was that kind of your stepping stone into going pro?
Yeah, it was. So what happened after the Olympics was I decided to do the 49ers, and we were training heaps, and we were up with Chris Nicholson and Adam Beechel, speed-wise, and we were going pretty good. I had Todd Martin-Jones as my crew, and he had a bit of an arm problem, and we'd sort of get through the first day, and then he'd get this lactic acid problem in his arms, and he'd have to just withdraw from the regatta, and I'd have to quickly with someone else to come and hang off the wire on a 49er with no training, and we just had a lot of trouble. Obviously, we spent a lot of time swimming. Anyway, we kept on going back to the next regatta together with Todd Martin-Jones, but he had a lot of these problems with his arms. So anyway, we didn't do very well. Adam and Nico battled it on, and I think Nico got the berth for the 2000 Games spot, and that's when the far 40s started kicking off then. And I had Leroy Brown was the 4th boat out of the mould, out of the far 40 mould, and I started sailing on the Leroy Brown. Actually, before that, I was with Marcus Blackmore on a Mum 30 campaigning, a Mum 30 up and down the coast, and Marcus Blackmore got a Far 40 as well. So it was a big decision whether to go with Marcus or Warren Wickman. And Marcus back in those days wouldn't pay. There was no professional sailing at all. So believe it or not, like Marcus is a big payer these days, but back then wouldn't pay. So I got a gig sort of running the boat off water for Leroy Brown, but not for getting paid on water. But yeah, we went on to win quite a few regattas. We were at the best Far 40 for the first couple of regattas, and we did the Hobart race together. And I think there was 4 boats that did the Hobart that year in 1999. And this was after the disastrous 98 Hobart, where 6 people died and all the rest of it. And yes, we were all a bit nervous taking a really light Far 41 design in the Hobart race. Anyway, we're flying down the coast, and we got hit by this squall at about 5 a.m. This is one of my favourite stories. About 5 a.m, we get hit by like 40 knots, and we had the spinnaker up. And I'm steering, and we're just flying along, and we had everyone down the back of the bus, and we had Angus Gordon videoing. Next minute, we just sort of come off this wave, and we ploughed down. Like it was hard rain, couldn't see a thing. And we launched off this wave straight vertically into this trough, and we did a full cartwheel. And everybody was thrown over the side of the boat, except me. Like I was on the wheel. The wheels are like massive. And the next minute, like the boat just got a full pitch pole like this, and it capsized like that. And the rudder hit the water, and it just threw me like a rag doll to the deck. And I look over my shoulder, and everyone's at the end of their tethers, and I'm going, oh my God, like I hope everyone has hooked on. And I noticed that one guy hadn't hooked on, and I'd love to mention his name, Ashley Deeks, because he could have lost his life right there. And if he's watching, man, I'll never forget. And John O'Morris, who's one of the top dog at McConaghy Boats these days, he grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and said, where are you going? Because he noticed that everyone at the end of their tethers except him, he was going out further than everyone, and he grabbed his collar and brought him back on board and saved his life. So yeah, very lucky for Ashley.
Gosh, very lucky. I mean, it just takes 1 second, doesn't it, for something like that to happen?
Yeah.
Scary. So how did that Hobart end up? I don't know if I would want to go down to Hobart on a lightweight racing quality Far 40, but
well, Keeloa had the record of 2 days 12 hours, and we actually broke that record. Like that record stood for 25 years or something, and I think it got broke the year before, or only 1 or 2 years before. And so this was 99, and we broke Keeloa's record on a Far 40. And I remember we were actually with this big southerly, with the big northerly, we were actually due to get in 2 days exactly. But when the southerly hit us off Maria Island, it's obviously slowed our progress down, and we didn't finish till actually 1 o'clock in the morning. So only an hour, inside Keeloa's record.
Yeah.
But all my family were at the dock and waiting for us from 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and they're all pissed as newts, just waiting for us to come in. And by the time we got in here, they were all blind.
Yeah, excited. It's such an exciting place to be, isn't it? And if you haven't noticed, for our audience, I've decided to join Steve in Tasmania today via virtual background. So this is a photo from the docks at Hobart, 2017, I think, a couple of years ago anyway. So Steve, I know you have so many stories to tell us, but I would love to chat a little bit about your experience as Tactician and get some tips about tactics as well for our audience, because I know there's a lot of people who are really interested in that. If you think about, okay, your role as Tactician on a high performance program, or any program really, talk us through kind of what are your kind of roles and responsibilities as Tactician?
Yeah, well, first of all, I need, you sort of got to help out with getting all the crew organised, and usually there is like a crew boss that does all that hard work for you. But I sort of sit down with them and sort of see who they've got, and if there is any gaps, I sort of look through my database and fill in the gaps. Can I just step back before we go any further? I just want to mention the 98 Hobart. I just had this in mind to tell this story.
Yeah.
1998 was a disastrous one where 6 people died, and I was actually asked to do it on Sword of Orion, and with Rob Cothy at the time, and it gives me goosebumps today because I couldn't do it because I was actually already committed to doing the Coffs Harbour race, which is, back then it was on the 27th, so it clashed. So that was with Marcus Blackmore when he had his mum 36. So I did quite a bit of sailing with Marcus. I think Rob Cothy then asked Glyn Charles to do the tactical role, and he was lost at sea. So it gives me goosebumps to think about. That could have been me, obviously, if I had said yes to that regatta. Yeah. So that was a disastrous year for sure.
Yeah, and for people who don't know who Glyn Charles was, he was a British Olympic sailor.
He was a star. I think he represented in 96 games as well in the star class. So he was one of the best sailors around at the time. So shocking news that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Sword of Orion had quite a few issues. They rolled a couple times, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong with any of this, but
they did. That's right. And I think Glyn was actually tethered onto the wheel, and they cartwheeled down. They actually retired from the race, and they were heading back to Eden. They cartwheeled down this massive wave, and the mast broke, and I think the boom hit the pedestal that Glyn was hooked onto and got knocked over the side, and it was all pretty horrific stuff.
Yeah, things could turn out a lot differently, couldn't they?
Yeah, not wrong.
Not wrong. And on that note, I think let's go back to tactics, and let's pull in as we chatted through the tactics, pull in a few of your stories as well from
sure.
other experience, because I know you have heaps. I guess thinking back to the roles and responsibilities of a tactician, as you mentioned, the crew, and I guess even thinking about that story you just mentioned about Sword of Orion. How much, I guess, as the tactician, if you were the tactician on that or another offshore program, how much, I guess, are you involved in the decision making, because you have a navigator as well, and in the preparation, and what could you do to kind of, I mean, nothing could have stopped 98, but what could you do to kind of, I guess, help manage that as well as the tactician?
The problem back then was, a lot of the boats weren't really up to such a fierce storm of 98. So, I mean, things have changed so much since those days, with all the safety and making sure that everyone's got the right safety equipment and personal EPIRBs and all the rest of it. So, just you've got to go through the process and the crew training and making sure that everyone knows their roles in a horrible situation like that. But obviously, yachting's changed since that disastrous race, and you've got to do all the training and sea safety courses, and that's I'd make sure that I do everything these days, like make sure that I've got all my certificates and up to date with what the latest technology and processes are to make sure that you can survive those sort of horrific circumstances.
Yeah. And thinking about different types of racing, because of course the Sydney Hobart is very different than a 541 design regatta, or even say doing a SOPS. And there's so many different types of racing, and your thinking process as a tactician, and I guess thinking both preparation and during the event, must be quite different. Kind of talk us through a little bit about how you'd maybe approach, say, a non-offshore race versus an inshore or more of a windward lured type of race.
Well, obviously, safety is key, and you just got to make sure that you know exactly where everything is offshore. You know, your EPIRB and tethers and organisation on board the boat is paramount. You've just got to make sure everyone keeps the boat clean and everyone knows where their stuff is, and when the shit does hit the fan, like, you've got to just be up on deck as fast as possible and tethered on and all the rest of it. I mean, we get some pretty hairy stuff on Sydney Harbour sometimes, but it's just nothing like, offshore in those, horrible 50-foot waves and all the rest of it. You just got to do the training. You've got to get out there as much as you can and try and simulate some rough stuff. There's no good just getting out there on the calm days, and just got to stick it into the hard subtleties with the whole crew and just get it done, get the training done.
Yeah, so I guess I'm hearing it's a lot about that preparation and about crew being prepared and the boat being prepared, and just know how to kind of manage all of those different situations and what to do. If you think about offshore racing more from not necessarily the safety perspective, but the tactical perspective, as in you want to win the race, give us a couple of, and I know it's hard because everything's different, but what's kind of your thinking process? What are a couple of your tips for a tactician in an offshore race from a winning perspective?
Just got to do the homework and know exactly what the weather's doing. I mean, with the routing software these days, the navigator has got a huge job to sort of, do the homework leading up to the event and sit down with, me and the owner and a couple of other key people and just nut out exactly where you want to be and have a step-by-step sort of plan of if this happens and if the system moves a little bit this way, what's the alternate, route, and just the key points of the race, where we want to be. And also just, making sure that the crew are all sort of up to speed with everything and knowing where everything is. And the whole sleep deprivation thing is paramount as well. Like in the early days, we used to sail and try and stay awake for 3 days. And you're just dead by the time you get, say, to Tasman Island. You just can't survive, And I'm just always saying to the crew, just get your head down. Like if it is a nor'easter and we're running in 15 knots of wind, just get people down. Like if there's a 15, if we've got 15 POB, we get 10 down. Like just get people sleeping, because if there's a southerly buster coming, that's when you need to stay awake for 24 hours.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if we want to talk a little bit more about some of the inshore stuff, because again, the offshore versus inshore, kind of very different thinking. What would be your, say, top 3 tips to somebody who is doing tactics for a harbour race, again, from a winning point of view?
Yeah, I just do so much homework on the start line and the first sort of beat, but getting that start correct, just knowing exactly what the tide's doing. If you've got instrumentation to ping the ends, you've got to do that. If you don't, you've got to get transits, like, look through from the boat to the pin and get your transit and get it both ways if you can. And it's so crucial to be able to communicate with your bowman so that he's got the transit and exactly where you are on the start line. And a lot of the times, if it is a big fleet, and it looks like there's going to be 15 boats vying for the pin end, it's just too high risk. I always sort of I tend to always come in on the, from the port hand side. And if I can see a lot of boats trying to win that pin end, just don't do the high risk factor. I always just come up and just pick the first hole from the pin, sort of allow yourself enough time to get into that nice hole and use your transit to hit the line with speed and survive from there.
Yeah, so the start itself is always a high kind of stress environment, I guess, for everyone involved, especially for the tactician. And so as well as that preparation, what I guess some of the different strategies that you would use on the start line? Just expand on that a bit.
Yeah, just sort of knowing, your time on distance and just always knowing exactly how far off the line you are and always trying to get distance between you and the lured boat, obviously, so that you can foot off and get speed without someone jamming you up. And the key is to be able to sort of like go for speed and when you want, sort of thing. And if you've got someone jammed hard underneath you, then you can't bear away. You know, your windward boat must keep clear. So just try and get yourself in a position, work real hard. So you've got to get to the leeward and then work with your bowman to hit that line right on the money with speed. Just fighting for your position.
Yeah, really great tips. And we've got a question from Brian, and I feel like we've answered part of the question, but he also was asking around kind of the tactician's role in keeping crew focused and keeping crew cool. He was specifically asking around start lines, but just if we kind of expanded that out and look at, you know, if something goes wrong, or if, you know, sometimes your crew maybe aren't focused or in a bit of a stressful environment, what are some things you can do as tactician to kind of keep your crew focused so that everyone's working towards the same goal?
Yeah, we always sort of made sure that if the shit hits the fan, so to speak, everyone sort of goes back to their key roles. So if you have a major situation, like, you know, we've had plenty. Like I can remember one time on the Cookson 50 with Ray Roberts, we had this big southerly buster hit us in the Southport race, and it, you know, went from like a nice sort of nor'easter to like, you know, 35 plus in a matter of seconds, and we just, you know, just everyone straight into their key positions, and you know, we had to change spinnakers and just as long as everyone knows their go-to position, and when, you know, when everyone calls, you know, everyone on deck, the means go to your key position, and so everyone sort of knows in a crisis situation how to get the job done quickly. And in that particular situation, if I can quickly, you know, tell you a story.
Yeah, please.
The change sheet in that particular instance, I think we're appealing from A4 to A3 from memory, and the change sheet, the spinnaker sheet, was inside the shroud. So then when we dropped the outside spinnaker, the A4 down, the A3 was inside the shroud, which when it set in 35 knots of wind, we're in danger of losing the rig. So the mast looked like, you know, could possibly, you know, crash out of the boat. So I'm steering at the time, and the seaway just built up really quick, and we're flying along doing 20s, and the keel's fully canted out to the port hand side. The next minute, like, I'm running really flat, to try and take the load off the spinnaker so it doesn't pull the rig out of the mast. Next thing, we just launched down into this wave, and we're going into this almighty Chinese jibe. Yeah. So because the keel's out on the port hand side, do a massive Chinese jibe like this. So the mast is just going bang straight into the water. And next minute, everyone's at the end of their tethers, like over the side again, like this bloody 99 Hobart. Oh, here we go again. So
which race was this?
Huh?
Which race was this again?
Well, this was a Sydney to Southport race around 2009 on Quantum Racing, Cookson 50 with Ray Roberts. Yeah, so we mast is in the water, and the boom's up in the air, like vertical, and the keel's still canted. And so I hit the auto cant button to get the keel automatically across to the other side. And as soon as I hit that button, I saw the boom starting to come across, and I just went, oh, I'm out of here. So I just launched forward into the cockpit just as the boom came crashing down and hit the water. And there's guys in the water, and the end of the boom missed some of the crew's heads by like this much. It was bloody frightening. Yeah. But we sort of managed to not break anything. I think the spinnaker exploded into the rig as we came up, because
it's probably the best thing that could have happened.
My friend Scooter was trimming the spinnaker, and he was hanging onto the spinnaker. I'm not sure if he was tethered on or not, but he was hanging onto the spinnaker for all life, you know, just over the side of the boat. And I said to him, why didn't you let the spinnaker go? Because if we had been able to let the spinnaker go, the kite would have gone around the other side and it wouldn't have exploded. And he goes, I'm sorry, but I would have been like left behind if I didn't hang on to the spinnaker sheet. So the spinnaker exploded into the rig, into a million pieces.
Oh man, exciting. It sounds like you've had a few exciting stories and you've told us a couple. I feel like we should go at least one more story. If you wanted to pick out your most either hairy or exciting thing, what would you say it is?
Oh, what have we got? I was going to say, I mean, we've had situations like my first Hobart was in 1992, and that was on a boat called Let's Go with all my 505 mates from Lake Macquarie. Peter Hewson owned the boat, and anyway, we had a hell of a time. Like a massive big southerly came through, and everyone was sick except me and one other guy. Managed to get the boat across Bass Strait and all the rest of it. Pretty horrific stuff. Where was I going to go with that? But yeah, then we had like 2001 was the next time I did the race, and on a boat called Sting, which is ex-Yendes. It was a Rockall Pew 49. Mm-hmm. We actually hit 4 whales and a sunfish that race. The odds of hitting 1 whale is pretty slim, but we actually hit 4. And the sunfish, just so hard to get off the keel. Like it's just fully wraps because it's got the wings and it just wraps around the keel, and you need to like back up to get the thing off.
Yeah. Yeah, no, good. Hey, we've got a question from Bridget. So she was asking about advice for shorthanded racing.
Like two-handed racing?
Yeah, two-handed or single-handed. Have you done a lot of any shorthanded racing?
No. I actually thought about campaigning for the Olympics if there's any big fat sponsors out there. I wouldn't mind giving it a go. But I heard there's quite a few guys like getting interested in doing that stuff, and it's kind of interesting. But I can't say I've done, apart from dinghies, any two-handed yachting stuff.
I guess if you were going to think through it, what would be what types of things would you be thinking if you were planning out your own campaign?
You just got to have the program fully in place, like the sleeping side of things. How do you do like these long races with? I don't know if she's talking about long races or short races. That's the long race stuff where you just got to get the sleeping.
I would expect long races, but Bridge, if you want to pop another question just to clarify, then we can go from there. But yeah, if you were thinking, if we think long races and preparing to say do Doublehanded Sydney Hobart 2020, what would be your kind of thought process?
Again, it's just communicating and knowing who's doing what, and in a crisis situation you've got to have your go-to positions, and when there's only 2 on board, it's not hard to sort of pick, I suppose, who's the best crew, who's the best skipper, and it is preparation. Like everything's about preparation. You've got to make sure you know where everything is, and it's so hard, like to think if you're in a situation like we were in some of these Hobarts, with 40 or 50 knots of wind and you've only got 2 people, it's just, you've got to make sure you know each other's ability and you know exactly where everything is.
Okay. And Bridge came back and she was looking for offshore, so thank you, and thanks, Bridge. And we have a question from Jacob. It says, coolest dinghy you have sailed?
Coolest dinghy?
Yeah.
Oh my God! The Flying 11s were fantastic, as I said. They're such a good fun class, and there's so many of them. So if you're talking young stuff, the Flying 11, you can't beat it. And then the 49ers, we did have a lot of fun. Like 2 on the wire, it's just fast and it's exhilarating. It's good fun. Like I love that sort of stuff. I wish the 29ers had been around back in my day. They do look fun, and I kind of I see some sort of dads sailing with their sons, dad on trapeze for the weight, and and the son steering. And I almost got my son, Zach and Tom, interested in doing that, because I'm trying to get them into sailing a bit more, and almost got that off the ground, but not quite.
Cool. Okay, keep working. Something to keep working on.
Yeah, for sure.
And how about, I'm going to throw in another question from me. So if there's anyone who didn't grow up sailing dinghies, but they want to kind of get into it a bit later in life to give it a try and to learn, like you said, that's such a good kind of experience for people who are racing yachts. What would you suggest for them? What's a good go-to dinghy for an adult trying to learn to sail a dinghy for the first time?
An adult learning to sail a dinghy?
Yep. Usually you throw the littlies in, say, an opti or something, but it might be a bit too big for that. So what would you suggest?
I had a guy, and I was going to actually mention my first pro gig was with Neil Whiston, and he just wanted to learn how to sail lasers, Well, he wanted to learn how to sail dinghies because he started sailing late in life. And he said to me, because of that reason, he wanted to start sailing dinghies to learn about the balance of the boat and all the rest of it. So I think if you hop into a laser, like lasers do give you everything. Like, you straight away you got to know the balance of the boat. That's step one, and then how to trim the sail. And you can't blame anyone else. You're by yourself. So if you get out on a laser in all sorts of conditions, you learn how to sail pretty quickly. It's kind of like getting thrown in the deep end. Yeah.
Or you just get wet.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get smacked in the head by the boom. And that's the first thing you learn is jibing and how to get that boom across without hitting, knowing when it's going to come across and doing it with the right and the right way to do it, so you duck your head at the right time and all the rest.
Yeah, that's right. And being prepared to, once it goes across, to kind of get your weight back up on the other side so that you don't go all the way over. And I decided to purchase a laser a few weeks ago, so I've got trying to get back into it from first time in about 18 years, I think. So
and it was amazing how Neil Whiston at the time on Fruit Machine, he became so much better because it was all about feel and knowing why we're doing this and why the crew are just swapping sides and staying close together to keep the weight in the middle of the boat and everything. And you just sort of learn that when you're sailing a laser, where to put your body weight. And from that you kind of put that knowledge into the keel boat, and it's the same sort of deal. If you can do the same, if you're fast in dinghies, you're going to be fast in a keel boat with kinetics and all that stuff.
Yeah. Nice. And I've got a couple more questions, and I just want to say to the audience, if anybody else has questions, just pop them in the Q&A, and so we can answer them for you. So if anybody here is interested to learn how to do tactics themselves, what are some of your tips around what kind of knowledge should they try to acquire, or what can they do to kind of learn how to be an effective tactician on, and thinking more maybe club racing here, but on say a club boat?
Yeah, well, just learn from the tactician that's on board. Just take in exactly how he goes about from the get-go. Like as soon as you step on the boat, just sort of try and take in what the tactician does. Like I'm still kind of learning from guys that I look up to. Like I see how I compare how I run a boat, compared to other guys around that are doing tactics these days. Sometimes, I might step on and do main sheet, and it's kind of good. I'll learn from the tactician to see how they're doing it, sort of thing. But it's all about communication and making sure there is a bit of a hierarchy on board, and that they respect your final decision and get the communication perfect. Just sort of having tell people who's doing the wind calls and who's looking after the kinetics, the weight distribution, and just sort of have key people and key roles and sort of have them report to you quietly so you can make the final decision. Yeah. I'm still sort of in situations these days where I have people on board trying to sort of be outspoken and try and, like, I'm not I try not to be the one screaming and yelling and really dominant on board. I'll sort of I show my authority, but I sometimes don't, as I said, yell and scream. So people start to think that they can override you, but you've just got to make sure you put them in their place, nicely, and make sure that they know that you're the one calling the shots and you're the boss, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because you've seen that, and I'm sure you've seen it where, you're trying to run the boat and somebody else thinks that they're going to jump in and override your decisions, whether it's right or wrong. It's not effective. I mean, I guess thinking about that, because you do have to really have that kind of chain of command, I guess, and hierarchy as it is. Is there anything you would suggest people could do even before they get out on the water or from a team management perspective, to make sure that does work and the communication does work effectively?
Yeah, it's all about communication and just sitting down and talking through the procedures and how you like to run the boat. And if the bowman wants to ask the tactician something, put it in writing, and I'll see what I can do about answering it. That's how I was taught. But just sort of have, one guy in the middle of the boat sort of saying, okay, feed the information to me and then I'll get it back to the tactician. Like, big boats, you can't have everyone yelling and screaming. I mean, you see wild oats, and some of the big boats, the 100-footers, have got, walkie-talkies, little earpieces and stuff, so they can communicate well. But it's just making sure that that it's a quiet boat and messages are coming back in the right manner, sort of thing.
We had a question from Ken about any good books on tactics or sailing that you recommend, and Ken, I'll come back to you. I'll put the question out on our Facebook and see what people from the community come back and say. But Steve, do you have any suggestions on books?
I actually had it's no use plugging this now, but I did have an online sailing coach thing online. I had my whole brain online, but it took off there for a while, but I just let it lapse when I started working in China for the last couple of years. I don't know. What's that?
So you'll have to see if you can get it back.
Yeah, it's just a matter of hitting the button, I suppose, and getting it back. But I don't know what books are out there these days, but
Ken, I'll put the question out on our Facebook page for you, though, and we can see what kind of the community comes back with for suggestions on that one. And Steve, unless there's any more questions come through from the audience, I just wanted to kind of finish up by getting a bit of an idea of what's next for you. I guess all these lockdowns are obviously putting a bit of a stop to some of your Asia stuff, but what are your plans for the next 12 months?
So, it's a good question. I'm just sort of starting to get some messages coming through, what's the plan for Hobart, sort of thing. So I've got to make some decisions on who I want to campaign with for Hobart. There's always the Far 40 and there's the McConaghy 38s. Like, that's always a pretty good gig for me. So it's combining the McConaghy 38s, Far 40s, blue water point score leading up to Hobart. And then, I've been doing so many Asian regattas for the last, since 2004. So sort of 15, 16 years, I've been doing like 12 Asian regattas a year. So kind of like, throwing all that up in the air and seeing where it lands as well. But I want to sort of get a bit of a charter business happening overseas as well. Like, I've got access to boats that are actually on the market, and instead of rotting away and not being sailed, like, I've got a pretty good rapport with a few guys that can sort of lend me their boat for a small fee, and then I can then take people overseas and come sailing and experience all these fantastic Asian regattas where there's so many beautiful places like Koh Samui. I've done 15 of those regattas, and I've done pretty well 15 of every Asian regatta, and just show people the experience of sailing in Asia and sail well, win the regatta, learn from a few of us pros. Like, it's a good gig.
Yeah.
And there is one boat that I've got access to up there, and I have done a couple of regattas up there on a J130, which used to be called, well, it still is called Jingjing. I campaigned that when it was Beijing Sailing Centre for a couple of years. So I've got access to that, and I'm thinking about sort of ramping that up and saying, if people want to come and join me for some of those experiences, just for a small amount of money, you can have the best time of your life sailing in exotic places like that.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
And
So
there's 15 regattas a year in Asia, all over, from, as I said, Koh Samui. The regattas kind of like start from 1st of July. You're looking at Phuket Race Week, and then you're up to sort of Hong Kong for the China Coast Regatta, China Cup, and then back down for Rajamuda, King's Cup, and then Langkawi, and a few Filipino regattas thrown in the mix. And then top of the Gulf Regatta is a fantastic regatta in Pattaya, Thailand, and then the final one is Koh Samui Regatta, which is where they did the big presentation and of the year's Asian Grand Prix. It's awesome fun, and you got King's Cup obviously thrown in the mix there. That's the biggest one.
Yeah, well, hopefully it all opens up soon, so he can get back out over there.
Yeah,
I've got a couple more questions that come through. Chapo, first of all, has passed along Mac is the best offshore helm he sailed with. So
hey.
There you go. Bit of a compliment. And he wants to know, what's your best Team Hollywood story? There must be something. I feel that's a loaded question.
Yeah, well, that one I just said about sailing. I gather he's talking about on water, not off water, because Ray Roberts had us under a pretty tight curfew.
Let's stay with on water, I think.
Yeah, he had us in bed at 11 o'clock every time, because we've been sailing so much with Ray. I've been sailing with him for 12 years or something, and he's got boats in Asia and boats here. He's got boats everywhere, but geez, that Cookson 50 was a lot of fun. We had some outstanding rides on that thing, and we've broken 30 knots 4 times on that thing, and top speed of 32.8 knots in another Southport race. Just awesome stuff. But,
yeah, nice. And Jacob McConaghy wants to know if you're going to be doing any racing in SP20s.
Yeah, that's my nephew. Hey, Jacob. So he's a real good up-and-coming sailor, Jacob. He's sailing the SP20s a lot down here in Tasmania, and that's the biggest one design sailing down here. So if Jacob can organise one for me, I'm sure he'll want a crew.
There you go.
I can crew for him, whatever. But let's make it happen.
Joining us, Jacob, and game on.
Yeah, it's not too far away. As soon as some of these restrictions open up and we can go sailing again, I think that's what I'll be doing. I'll start getting some connections down here in Hobart and sailing the SP20s, and whatever's on offer down here. Enzo's got a good modified 540, so there's some big decisions to make for Hobart. There's a few boats to choose from.
Nice. Yeah, it's a good place, good situation to be in.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. Steve, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and giving us all your tips and stories. And I'm sure you could tell us stories for hours, but we'll have to catch up for a drink at some point and hear more stories. And I'm sure a lot of our audience would like to do the same. Thank you to everyone for joining us. And again, Steve, huge thanks for joining us. And we'll wrap it up there. But I hope to see you all next week, same time, same place.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. I only got halfway through, so we should have a part B.
Yeah, well, we could do. We can definitely have a part 2. So
there's lots more to tell. Yeah,
absolutely.
I just haven't really.
Absolutely. Well, let's do it. Let's have a part 2.
For so long, I just go sailing all the time. It's great. Lots of stories.
Yeah. No. Okay. Well, we'll do that. We'll have a part 2. And we've got Stacey Jackson joining us next week. So
yeah, great.
That should be good as well. So. Yeah, thank you so much. And we'll wrap it up there. But again, thank you.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you'd like to know more about this program or the MySail app and community, head on over to mysail.team. That's mysail.team. Until next time, stay safe and happy sailing.